Hello there, Reject Nation. How you doing there, darlings? I'm Greg.
And I'm John.
We watched the movie that everyone won't shut up about, Bohemian Rhapsody. The biopic tale about Freddie Mercury's rise to fame, his struggle with being a closet homosexual, how that affected his life, and also the tale of Queen and their journey to Live Aid, and a whole bunch of stuff. Whole bunch of songs. And how they created this song, and that song, and this family drama. Wow, what a film. Hey, before we really review this, and there will be spoilers, by the way, because it's based on a true story, and everything in this is 100% accurate. We wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been following us on the Stardust app. We just passed 7.3K followers. Thank you guys so much. This shout out is a non-sponsored shout out, but hey, we're doing it because we love using it. It's a real big extension of the Real Rejects. We do 30-second reactions / reviews for films, TV shows, and trailers, and a lot of times we do like micro sketches as well. I hope you guys can download the app. It's free to download, free to use, so do it now. Anyway, enough chit chat. Let's talk about Bohemian Rhapsody. I want to preface this with saying that, and you know what? These prefaces make no difference. Even I do them more for me, because I know that I'm just trying to make sure I defuse this bomb, even though it's still going to go off.
Do it just so that you can write the time code underneath the comment pointing out that you didn't do something.
I fully acknowledge that movies are subjective. I totally see how this movie overall has a higher recommendation score from critics, especially in the YouTube sphere. It seems like most people on YouTube really love this movie. There's a couple I can think of that don't. I think there's still a lot to appreciate about this film, and I don't want to review this movie going off of what is accurate and what is inaccurate. As a matter of fact, I waited to look up that stuff like an hour after I watched the movie to think of it, because I had a lot of some pretty strong opinions about the film already, and then I looked up stuff, so I don't want to come from that angle of what's accurate and inaccurate. Overall, I don't love this movie. I'm not even sure if I like it, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. I think Rami Malek does a really good job of what he's given. There's some issues I have with the portrayal of Freddie Mercury, but in terms of what was written for him and the performance he gave, I thought he did a fantastic job. The cinematography is really nice. It's one of the glossiest looking films I've ever seen. It's really like
Crisp.
It's like a shine on all this, every frame.
Everything is just a little sweaty.
This glow on everything in this whole movie.
The movie just got done having sex before it was released.
It's just like, wow, look how shiny every shot is.
Shimmering.
There's plenty of moments throughout from beginning to end that would have a moment here, a moment there, that I thought was really effective, and that was usually within the chemistry between Freddie Mercury and Mary, and also Freddie Mercury and the band. John, your thoughts? Say some positives, because you can't be all negative.
Love it. Taron Egerton's great as Elton John.
Yeah.
And Joaquin Phoenix kills it in this movie too. Truman
Bradley
Capote,
Cooper
he's amazing.
And Lady Gaga are going to get Oscar nods.
Definitely. I came into this movie as a relatively uninitiated Queen listener, so this was a chance for the movie to make a big impression on me. And I ultimately walked out with a light version of how I felt about The Greatest Showman, where I was like, there's a lot you can pick apart about this movie, but for some reason I still very much enjoyed watching it, and I still left feeling good. And so I feel like there's a lot of good work in this movie. I feel like the cast is really great. The music is the music, so it's going to move you regardless. And I do think that while the movie is uneven for sure, there are some really beautiful moments. I feel like this is a movie more comprised of moments than it is an actual film. I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle about it. I'm not in love with it, but I appreciate it.
I couldn't help but just think that this feels like the best looking made-for-TV film I've ever seen.
In a way, it has that kind of structure.
That made-for-TV biopic on, like, you'd see on like VH1 or back in the day with like NBC and CBS. One of my main issues with this film came in with the pacing of the movie, especially in the first half. Like the first half, before Mary comes to terms with, after Freddie Mercury reveals that he's bisexual. For some reason, this movie only leans in on the gay angle, but I was under the impression he was bisexual bisexual.
He seemed like one of those figures who would kind of be with anybody who he finds
Yeah,
appealing,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
kind of like a David Bowie or one of those.
Which still at the time, being bisexual was still very much, controversial. Everything leading up to that moment, because that's when I felt like the movie finally kind of slowed down and had a scene. Because before that, it was a lot of scenes that were just edited really rapidly. The pacing of it was moving so fast, like going through all the cliches of every generic biopic you've ever seen.
There's an origin moment for about anything you can imagine.
Well, yeah, I mean, like from the whole thing with the band and they lose their lead singer. He just happens to stumble on this conversation at this right time.
Yeah.
He joins the band and suddenly they get signed and then, they're recording a song and now they're touring. It's so fast that none of these moments had this moment of inspiration to me. I didn't feel the inspiration or the magic of what this film is definitely trying to get you to do. And it kind of goes this way throughout from beginning to end. Even when the film finally slows down, it still does this problem. A scene that kind of finishes and then we do a time jump.
And then we do some kind of montage move right into some other unrelated scene.
Sometimes it's not even
number.
a montage. It's just a time jump to like,
we're
going to get you on television. And then next thing you know, they're on BBC.
And now it's 1985.
And I'm not even sure what happened with that scene. And like they had an issue there about lip singing. And now we're doing another time jump. And I thought this movie was really going to come to strong fruition in terms of its pacing and editing around the time they started developing the Bohemian Rhapsody song. The title of this movie, arguably their most famous song. You get to that scene where they're breaking down the song and it's a lot of fun. It's moving really fast. And then the guy, Mike Myers, plays Ray, the producer who signed them to the label. And this was the scene that was like the most ironic to me. Ray hates Bohemian Rhapsody. He's saying it's too long. What's this about? Yada yada yada.
Nonsense.
It's nonsense. And then they're talking about not being formulaic and that how they shouldn't be. And I couldn't help but be pulled out and go, this is the most formulaic biopic I've seen in a long time. Like, it's so ridiculously formulaic. So much would happen where I didn't know for sure if it was true or not, but I kept going, that's probably not how it happened. That's probably not true. And then sure enough, when you like go back and read stuff, you're like, oh yeah, all these things I thought were not. Like, there's such big changes in this film. And my issue with it is like, I actually don't mind formula and I don't mind cliche. It's all about execution. And I feel like there was a lack of breathing room. They were trying to cram too much. I didn't know specifically what tale they wanted to tell of Freddie Mercury. They didn't.
Well, it seems like this movie is torn between being the Freddie Mercury biopic and the Queen biopic. And so I feel like if they had picked one, we might have been able to focus a little bit more and get some more in-depth scene stuff going on. Because Freddie is such a huge figure on his own. But the story of Queen is actually also pretty interesting. That scene where he is pitching the record to Mike Myers, I kind of felt like this movie could have, taken a note from that and been like, it's about, capturing the excitement and the live energy of musical theater, but, taking the scope of opera and, the energy of rock and things like that. I thought if they had made the movie match that thesis, and he's describing the album that Bohemian Rhapsody will be on, if they had taken that as the thesis for the movie, I feel like this could have been something that'll stand the test of time and be great.
Yeah.
Because right now I can see, like I said, I had a good time watching this, and I feel like a lot of people are going to really enjoy it.
It's not boring. The last thing from boring. I just don't think it's a well-constructed film, honestly.
It is, and the more I learn about especially the truth, the more kind of inexplicable the movie becomes to me, because also, the band is for the most part alive. And I'm like, why did you remix so many events and stuff like that and truncate so many things when you had the perfect opportunity to come in and be like, this is how it happened?
I mean, it was so apparent to me. I put out a tweet that was kind of talking about this. It was so apparent to me while I was watching it, like not really remembering anything I learned about Freddie Mercury from many months ago. While I was watching it, it was so obvious. There's this famous book, screenwriting book I've talked about before called Save the Cat. They have like the most formulaic, most copied structure you'll see in most mainstream movies. Look it up and you will see that
template.
You'll see that this movie 100,000% follows this template. And there's nothing really wrong with following that template. The problem is they tried taking all these different ideas and story elements about Freddie Mercury, about Queen, and they're like, how do we jam this all into a narrative? Let's just use this structure and just throw it all in here. Because of that, there's a lack of real energy to me and a lack of real depth and nuance and feeling. Let's go past the Bohemian Rhapsody part where they develop the song. They have this interesting filmmaking touch that I really liked when it occurred, where they throw a rock through Ray's window and then the album gets released. He puts on the radio. It's supposed to be this big thing, and then it opens up to like nothing but
all
real negative reviews from the biggest critics
superimposed on the screen.
Yeah.
It's a funny moment. It's really
funny. It's effective, and then there's nothing to deal with that. And not the following scene, not a later scene, nothing talks about that, when that was the whole point of showing those criticisms on screen. The idea that I know they wanted to go for was the critics hated it, but look how the fans responded to it, and look how it made it famous.
We're four misfits who don't belong together. They're playing for other misfits.
Yeah, the misfits and everything. But the movie doesn't even go into that territory. It's just, all right, they're performing again. This movie has this structure: personal life. Fights with the band. In that fighting with the band, they create a song. Personal life. Fight with the band. In that fight with the band, they create a song. You know?
Oh, and every song is capped off by a cut to them performing it live.
Performing it live, yeah. It's every single time, you know?
It does have a routine pattern about it.
With biopics, I feel like you gotta know what tale you want to tell. I don't even care if you alter facts.
I get it. It's gotta be an entertaining movie.
The same writer of this wrote The Darkest Hour, which completely leaves out a lot of asshole traits about he was way worse in real life, Winston Churchill. That doesn't matter to me, because that's telling a specific tale, a specific story.
Of his deeds are the point in that situation.
Steve Jobs, the one with Michael Fassbender, tells very specific moments for a reason. They have a tale, a story they're trying to tell. It's not just a medley of moments that are not really hitting, because this movie's like, do we want to tell the creation of the songs? And in that, I also have issues with it, because a lot of the times it was just watching them come up with some song, but it doesn't really link to their personal life in some fashions. Like when they would try to, it was kind of half-assed to me. There's this really cool moment where Freddie Mercury walks in. You know, it's that moment in the biopic where he's on drugs.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't help but think, did these writers watch the movie Walk Hard? Walk Hard is a movie about spoofing generic biopics, and this movie does like 90% of what Walk Hard is making fun of.
You're acting like some kind of punk.
Yeah, where he's caught up in drugs, his whole life's changing, and now he's changing the music. It's when they create Another One Bites the Dust. I love the song Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah, it's an awesome song.
I love that song. When they're fighting and talking about changing, they start playing the bass riff. I was like, all right, it's a cool scene, and I was into it because I'm a fan of Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah, and that's a scene where I'm sitting there going, I bet this didn't happen, but I hope it did.
Yeah. But then I'm thinking about it, I'm also like, does it really pertain to the movie? It's more of something that's cool to me, and not really, like, I felt like they tried cramming in too much with creating certain songs. Like the We Will Rock You song, I thought was a good fit for this movie to create that, because in exploring the elements of the unique connection Freddie Mercury and Queen makes with an audience, and how We Will Rock You enhance that connection, that's an important song to explore the creation of.
Yeah.
But if you're not really gonna do anything with how Another One Bites the Dust affected, you know, Queen or anything like that, there's no need to go into it. And I'm just like primarily sticking to criticisms here, but honestly, I'll watch a lot of movies and I'll have my criticisms, but it's about what the movie leaves me with. And what this movie left me with was just a lot of, there's no way this could all be accurate because this is so generic. How does this generic structure exactly like the way other generic music biopics are? And why would you do that with Queen, who is a legacy? They're legends. Don't just turn into some generic thing with a bunch of lip singing in it.
And it's funny to me because you got Dexter Fletcher stepping in to, you know, take over for Bryan Singer, and Dexter Fletcher is doing the Elton John movie.
Yeah.
Which is just ironic to me because that movie looks like it's taking a very,
inventive
figurative,
route.
Inventive route. And I'm thinking Freddie Mercury is one of the most iconic, immortal figures in music history.
And known to be different and unique.
Why
make formula?
And I almost feel like it should be Freddie before Elton John, who has a biopic like that has a very sort of out there quality to it. Like I have said before in this review, while I enjoyed the movie, that was the one thing nagging me throughout. I was like, this is just a biopic. This is like, here's that moment, and you're going to name check that thing that's going to come back later, and here's an origin spot for that, and it's all just kind of a big series of bullet points, some of which get a nice little scene around it, but there's not enough time to get to everything. So you ultimately feel like you kind of read the Cliff's Notes.
Yeah. I really like the scenes with Mary and Freddie. Like when he comes out to her, that was, I thought, a really well done scene. Stuff with Freddie and his family felt like really put in the back burner for some reason.
Yeah, and I
all that family does is chill in the living room.
That's it.
Over the course of 20 years, they're just like, kick it in the living room with the dad just crossing his arms, judging his son.
They gently disapprove, and then we don't really spend much time with them, and then eventually they learn to accept him.
He's the dad from Walk Hard.
He is. Wrong kid died.
He's like very just the disapproving dad and makes up with him, like in Walk Hard.
Yeah, and that was something, I don't know what his home life was like, but that was something that I was actually hoping would get at least a little more than it got in the movie, because when the turn comes around, it just doesn't feel like the movie really earned it.
I'm conflicted on that, because for me, as a guy who does not identify as a gay man, and just watching this movie from this perspective, this lens, I was like, did he really make up with his dad on the way to Live Aid?
I don't think so.
It's like this movie, I wasn't aware until afterwards that, oh, he wasn't diagnosed with AIDS till way after Live Aid. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
But even not being aware of that, watching it, it's like this movie has the approach of he gets diagnosed with AIDS, he starts re-examining his life, starts trying to make reconciliation and contrition with people, whatever. You know, he finds Jim Hutton, and then on the way to Live Aid, and then he meets up with his family on the way to Live Aid, who are just chilling. Apparently his sister still lives there. The dad forgives him, hugs him, turn on the TV, you know, like
without them even talking, really.
It was so corny, so cheesy. But then it like dawned on me, like I felt bad because I started like chuckling to myself at how corny it was. A, I don't know if that moment really happened, all right? Yeah. But B, before I showed up to grab my seat, I was with my girlfriend, and there were two guys next to me who were apparently a gay couple.
Oh, same.
And I looked over, I did that glance, and I noticed the guy next to me was really crying at that scene. So I'm like, well, maybe for a gay guy, like a guy who's had to really struggle with being okay with being homosexual, or had, you know, maybe didn't have accepting parents, just the culture, whatever, you know, all the things that go in line usually in society with being gay, that moment might affect that person a whole lot different than someone like myself, per se.
And oddly enough, there was a gay couple sitting next to us when last night as well, and they seemed very into it. I don't want to like put all the focus in and be like, what do the gay people think of this? They seem very affected.
I'm actually very curious to know what the gay community thinks of this movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Because not identifying as a gay man, there were parts of this film that I was like, this seems a little insulting. There was a point that hit my brain of, are they treating this as like when Freddie Mercury became gay is when everything went wrong? Not so much Freddie Mercury. Like the villain in this movie is the man who brought out the gay in Freddie Mercury. Was it Paul?
Paul, is it?
Paul, the gay evil man in the film.
Who is the most overtly hateable character.
And then every time we cut back to Freddie Mercury and with Paul, he's doing gay things that are upsetting the band.
Corrupting him and taking him away from everybody.
Changing your look. What the hell, Freddie? You're partying, doing gay parties. What the hell's wrong? Like, there's one point where the guitarist Brian, at a party that Freddie's holding because he's feeling lonely, he says, he's like, sometimes you can be a prick, Freddie. In that moment, I'm like, where are the scenes where I'm like, yeah, Freddie's definitely evolved into a dick, right? You know, like I don't see those moments in the film. Yeah. It's one thing to explore the struggle of being okay with being a homosexual. It's another thing where suddenly the movie's kind of portraying it in a way of whenever you take time to see the gay side of Freddie Mercury, it's painted in kind of a negative light.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an angsty part of the movie, and for so much of it, you're spending it with very unsavory character. I feel like it kind of clears up when he actually starts that relationship with Jim towards the end.
Yeah, the last 15 minutes of the movie, the gay thing's portrayed in a good light.
Yeah, it's just not much. You know, there's just not much beyond. Like the Paul character, you spend so much of this movie going like, I cannot wait for something to happen to you.
Like that was just so like, you know, so cliche the way he was. Oh gosh,
there's so many very cookie cutter moments in the movie, and then the one thing I'll give all of it is I thought so many of the performances and the way they captured it was very lively, and so at least in the moment I feel like you can get that momentary glimmer of the emotion, the punch, but I don't know how long it's going to stick with you.
Even though I'm like harping on the criticism so much, and I know that's the last thing you should do in a movie review on YouTube, I feel very passionate about it. If you look back at all the reactions I've done for this movie, for the trailers, I just really wanted an entertaining, good movie that with some exploration. There's no moments that even really hit, and cliche can, like, I like The Greatest Showman. I love A Star Is Born, you know? Yeah. Walk the Line is probably one of my favorite movies of all time. And those all have technically a structure that we've seen before in these biopics. It's all about its execution. My only issue with tweaking the facts, my only real issue with that, if you're gonna do it, how come you couldn't make something that's more focused? How come you couldn't, if you're going to take so much creative freedom, so much liberty with rearranging and completely making shit up, why not make something that's way more focused then?
Why not enhance the depth too?
I would actually be more forgiving for this movie if this is really accurate to how everything went down. Well, yeah, they wanted to tell it in the order, how it really portrayed in life, and yeah, it's a lot, but hey, that's how it went down. I'd be exceptionally more forgiving for it. But because that's not the case with this film, where it kind of ends with Live Aid with an amazing, Freddie Mercury impression of him dancing while he's lip singing like crazy. Sometimes the lip singing will pull me out. There were times it was very noticeable, especially because there were times where Rami Malek was really singing, when he's like making up songs and singing. And then when he actually sings and doing the lip singing, I'm like, this sounds like a different guy. Did you feel that way? Like when it ended at Live Aid, it kind of ends in a way as if that was the last performance by Freddie Mercury. I'm like, no, that wasn't the case though.
Well, and that moment is all muddied up by the way that they handle the whole AIDS storyline, because it definitely, it's like, is he gonna make it to the performance? Is he gonna be able to sing even? And it's like, I guess in real life they were just playing shows and they decided to play this show. I definitely got a sort of this was a swan song kind of vibe from that scene.
And I guess my issue with the Live Aid thing of how it went down, because I enjoyed the Live Aid sequence. I think it would have been more impactful if they actually gave some focus as to what Live Aid is about and why Live Aid exists. And instead of Queen doing this only for the performance to be, amongst the peers and to reunite and all those things, but also the good of doing this, like the good of how this will help Live Aid, what the purpose, the mission of Live Aid is for, because cutting to the phone calls has zero effect in the film, because I'm like, all I heard was Live Aid is about Africa, and I'm like, yeah, I know Africa has a lot of issues, especially, like, it's still bad, but at that point, can we get a scene where Queen cares about that? I don't know if Queen gave a shit about Africa. I don't know if they did, but if you're gonna make shit up, make that up. So have your phone call scene when the lines are off the hook now.
I mean, they really imply that it's basically like Freddie wants to do this because of
he has limited time left because he has AIDS. That was the focus.
And AIDS is a problem in Africa, so it's like, we got to do our part, and it's sort of implied that they're like, oh, okay, this is like a personal mission for you, and that's just again an odd choice, because I don't get the sense that was the reality. And so it would have been nice to see them maybe discuss what it's about, or maybe get it. They bothered to get a guy to play Bob Geldof, who organized it and who was, the front man of the Boomtown Rats and stuff. Maybe they could have had a scene with him. Because they cut away to him reacting to shit, but he never really gets a moment to interact with the band or anything like that. There just could have been more intimacy to this movie overall, I think.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
And the thing about this overall is that, while I enjoyed my time watching this movie, I left going, I would have been very curious to see the Sacha Baron Cohen version of this, because while I don't know if it would have been as fun or satisfying, I feel like it might have been a more qualitative, or at least a more engrossing movie. The thing about Freddie, at least aside from Queen, is that he's such a figure, he's such an idea, he's an icon, and so you really do kind of want to go in and get intimate. I feel like this movie kind of captures him in an outsider's perspective, because I've heard that he was kind of reserved in stuff in more intimate moments, and for most of the movie he's very big and very
flamboyant,
and very in charge all the time.
It was to the point where I was like, how did no one pick up he was gay?
and I, if he was that way, fine, I wasn't there, but from what I've heard, he wasn't always, the Freddie we saw on stage. And so I feel like, exploring the character, that's the thing I said earlier, is sort of like, pick Freddie or maybe pick Queen. Don't try to do both at the same time unless you have a longer movie to play with, or maybe choose different stuff to focus on, because I just don't feel like anything got as much depth as it really deserved, for how big he is.
I wasn't bored, but I can't help but be frustrated by its amount of cliches and amount of, I'm sure Mary really showed up to his house and said, I had a dream that you lost your voice, and then he broke up with Paul at that moment. I'm sure that really happened.
That is one of the biggest things, is even if you're fully pulled in, I gotta imagine there are gonna be a number of times where you're like, did all these things really happen, in the 10-minute stretch?
I'm sure he walked by AIDS patient and the guy said, hey.
And it's like he joins the band and meets the love of his life all in the same night. The guy quits the same day. Like, all these things happen so rapidly. You're like, guys, come on.
I'm sure at Live Aid, no one really paid any money until Queen went on
Yeah.
stage, and then suddenly everyone across the world and performed and dancing along in bars were paid money.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, Queen's on. Oh, screw Led Zeppelin and The Who and all those other guys.
That giant freaking list. If I controlled the tomato meter, I would probably give this like a 40%, honestly.
I'd probably leave it about where it is, like a 58, 60%.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not thinking this is like an amazing movie, but I had a good time.
All right, guys. Well, I'm sorry if I upset you. How many people unsubscribed because I didn't get on board with Bohemian Rhapsody? Oh, but you like A Star Is Born. Okay, yeah, they're the exact same
Here.
thing, right? Yeah.
If you're pissed off, I'll tell you, it's shot really well. There's a lot of good energy. There's some great performances.
Rami
some really
Malek's good.
Costumes and stuff. Rami Malek's great. All the guys who play the band are great.
And if you like the Queen soundtrack and you want a bunch of lip singing, awesome.
I was aware of it because, you know, you're gonna look for, you just know, you're just like, it's gonna be Freddie Mercury's voice. But I was only intermittently focused on it. There were times when I was just like, all right, you know, on the stage when they were like doing concert stuff. But I don't know. But that's also the biggest Queen music has ever been for me.
What did you think of Bohemian Rhapsody? Yay! You guys can subscribe to the Reject Nation, click that notification bell, and tell her to follow us on the Stardust app. I bet you want to. See ya.